Hello and welcome to News on NTA International. I'm Nancy Godi Angonihu and our sign language personality is Bamidele John. First, the headlines. Federal government restates commitment to actualizing educational reforms. Nigeria steps up efforts to cut down emissions and deaths from firewood smoke. Plus, UN raises concern over violence in Liberia ahead of October polls. Now the news in full. The federal government has restated determination in the actualization of education reforms that will encourage global harmony and sustainable development goals. Vice President Kashim Shettima stated this while addressing Nigerian teachers as they commemorate World Teachers' Day held at the Eagle Square, Abuja. State House correspondent Abdulrahman Jibrila reports.
Our teachers deserve to be treated with the respect and dignity they deserve. It is my promise that we will work tirelessly to build a society where the teacher's reward begins to manifest here on earth, not just in the hereafter.
And to achieve this, the federal government orders revision of guidelines to prioritize information technology and artificial intelligence.
We are acutely aware of the challenges our teachers encounter, challenges that have arisen from prolonged neglect of this noble profession. Our teachers grapple with overcrowded classrooms, scarce resources, limited opportunities for professional development, and a situation where individuals enter the teaching profession not out of passion, but as a last resort for employment. This situation must undergo a transformation, and I am resolutely committed to effecting this change.
Safeguarding and respecting the rights of every child, access to education, government at all levels need to pay attention as well as the welfare of teachers.
Development requires teachers to build their capacities to be resilient, creative, innovative, to shape the future of teaching to meet the new trend and challenges in education.
The 2023 theme for the day is the teachers we need for education we want, the global imperative to reverse the teacher shortage. In Abuja, Abdulrahman Jibrila, NTA News.
And as the nation joins the global community to celebrate World Teachers' Day, the House of Representatives has advocated improved welfare package and working conditions for teachers, describing them as strategic to national development and growth. Lawmakers, while eulogizing the sacrifices of teachers at Thursday's plenary, emphasized that without the contribution and role of teachers, no meaningful development can take place in society.
Our teachers who have taught us to be good citizens of this country. We salute them for their patience, for their perseverance, and their care, most especially.
People like Mrs. Vicky Adadu, my first primary school teacher who taught us under the mango tree as far back as 1996. Create a system whereby they will be recognized and they will be getting more incentives that will help them, that will enable them succeed because they played a vital role in our lives. All the teachers that impacted me and people around me, I want to say congratulations to them and God bless them.
And I also urge the federal government to use this day at least to do something special for our teachers, particularly their welfare and their whole entitlements.
National Assembly correspondent Mitaire Ibn reports that lawmakers also lent their voices to the debates on Nigeria's 63rd independence anniversary celebration.
While we congratulate ourselves for the developments and achievements we have made so far as a democratic nation, we must not also avoid to speak to those points that may not necessarily be interesting.
We have inherited this country with a poor functional refinery. And as we are speaking in this parliament today, Mr. Speaker, none of the refinery is functioning.
One area that I know that nobody will mention, and this is in terms of gender inequality, It is only when we have equality in terms of fairness, and indeed in terms of fairness and equity, that we can have, endless possibilities.
That we shall strive to be a society where every Nigerian enjoys equal opportunity and rights.
The task that we have now as a people in our own time to ensure that the institutions of governance at the executive level, at the legislature, at the judiciary, that they are strong.
Nigeria is our country, and we must do everything humanly possible to make this country great.
The Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation will from next month start payment of 25,000 naira grants to the benefiting members of the Nigerian Union of Pensioners captured in the expanded National Social Register of the Conditional Cash Transfer CCT scheme. The Minister, Dr. Ebeta Edu, stated this when she visited NLC President Joe Ajero at Labour House, Abuja. Ruth Aguele was there.
Dear compatriots,
following federal government's pronouncement for the disbursement of 25,000 naira to 15 million vulnerable households for 3 months through the Conditional Cash Transfer Program as part of the National Social Safety Net expansion, part of the commitment made is to include vulnerable pensioners in the National Social Register.
Mr. President, sir.
To this end, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation has come on this solidarity visit to the Nigerian Labour Congress to solidify the promise made by keeping the side of the bargain that affects the welfare of pensioners.
I was in a meeting with the World Bank and we agreed to do targeted capturing for the pensioners. We will come back and join forces with you to verify that these are the people. We want you to be convinced that the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu actually means well for Nigerians, and we are ready to do well for Nigerians.
In this business of making sure that Nigerians, come out of poverty, beyond palliatives, if you create jobs, the poverty index will reduce.
A united front is also part of the appeal to the labor unions to keep faith alive with the present administration to lift Nigerians out of poverty. In Abuja, Ruth Aguele, NTA News.
Now, the United Nations General Assembly, by a resolution in December 1999, proclaimed World Space Week to celebrate the contributions of space science and technology to betterment of life of mankind. This year, to increase the impact of World Space Week on all humanity, the UN Office of Outer Space Affairs further proposed space and entrepreneurship as the theme for the celebration. The choice of the theme is informed by the recognition of the growing significance of the commercial space industry in space and the increasing opportunities for space entrepreneurship and new benefits of space developed by space entrepreneurs. The day is expected to inspire students worldwide to study STEM, tap from space-related businesses, and offer space organizations the opportunity to recruit the workforce needed for expanding commercial space industry. Now, to speak more on the World Space Week is Dr. Godstime Kadiri James, Director, Mission Planning and Satellite Data Management Department, National Space Research Development Agency, NASDA. Glad to have you, Dr. Kadiri James.
Thank you for having me.
Now, what are some applications of space technology that can be used in promoting security?
Thank you very much. Of course, there are several applications. I will just mention a few. One of which is in border surveillance. As you know, particularly for our country, we have over 4,000 kilometers length of border, and it is, of course, humanly impossible to have border patrol using terrestrial means. So space technology provide a very stable tool to monitor our borders, both the northern borders, which borders the Sahara Desert and the rest, and then, of course, the southern border, which is in proximity to the Atlantic Ocean. So space technology provides that capacity to be able to monitor our borders. Secondly, space technology also assists in intelligence gathering. The advantage of using space for intelligence is the fact that you're able to collect the intelligence without being in physical contact with the source of the intelligence. And this is a major advantage over the terrestrial means of intelligence gathering. And lastly, space technology also provides us with high-resolution satellite imageries that is very, very important and relevant for our troops deployment. Thank you.
Now, can you speak to this year's theme of the World Space Week, space and entrepreneurship?
Thank you very much. As you know, the space economy globally is around 500 billion US dollars. And by the year 2050, this will amount to about 1 trillion US dollars. This is a lot of money, and this is a big economy. And this is driven primarily by the private sector. So that is why this year the Space Week theme is focusing on space and entrepreneurship. And it's also an opportunity to showcase the potential areas where investment can be made in space. And I'll just give you a typical example of the advantage that we have. Nigeria is located within the equatorial region, equatorial zone. And what it means is that to launch a satellite to the equatorial orbit is a lot cheaper if you have to launch from Nigeria. If you look at the geography, if you have to launch from anywhere in North America, it will take time for the satellite to get to the equatorial orbit, and it's more expensive, it takes more fuel. But launching from Nigeria is a lot cheaper. You get your satellites to the orbit within a very, very short period of time. And that is why the Space Agency is partnering with the private sector within the framework of the public-private partnership to ensure that we take advantage of the proximity of the country to the equator and be able to launch satellites from Nigeria. And this has the potential of earning over 400 million US dollars annually from this venture, at least for the first year. And of course, once this becomes publicly known, it is obvious that this can generate far more than that.
Oh, a very good revenue earner there. Now, looking at generational transfer, how can young minds be encouraged to explore the benefits inherent in space science and technology?
Well, of course, the young ones, they are the futures of tomorrow, the future leaders of tomorrow. And for us at the Space Agency, we are trying our best to ensure that we catch them young. We have several programs for the young people. For instance, within the framework of the Space Week, we organize students, secondary, primary, from about 30 schools yesterday. We brought them to the Space Agency, about 300 of them, and expose them to the rudiment of space science and technology and the interest and the excitement associated with space endeavors. And as well, we also took them to our space museum. At the Space Agency, we have Space Museum where the kids were exposed to meteorites that were found here in Nigeria. And so with that kind of opportunity, the young ones were able to get closer to space. And we also have VR, virtual reality facilities that help the student to experience zero gravity. So this is our own little way of getting them young and getting them interested in space science and technology.
Thanks for speaking to us on issues emanating from this year's World Space Week, Dr. Godtime Kadiri James.
Thank you for having me.
Now, moving on. World leaders have advocated more reforms as the current multilateral institutions are not delivering on their mandate. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres revealed this at a meeting tagged Our Common Agenda. Adebola Brookslyn reports.
Speaking at an informal meeting on the Our Common Agenda, Antonio Guterres said, after 141 bilateral meetings, there was strong criticism of the mismatch between the institutions of global governance and global economic and political realities.
There was deep concern about the state of the planet and the climate we are leaving to young people and future generations.
The UN scribe told the forum that common themes that emerged from the high-level week are the themes of our common agenda. The UN Future Lab, Guterres said, will leverage long-term foresight across the system.
And we are also increasing engagement with other important stakeholders from civil society to parliamentarians and the private sector. As part of these efforts, I will launch my advisory board on local and regional governments in the coming days, and I will also appoint a high-level advisory board on artificial intelligence later this month to provide recommendations on governance by the end of the year.
Our common agenda is the Secretary General's vision for the future of global cooperation. It calls for inclusive, networked, and effective multilateralism to better respond and deliver for the people and planet, and to get the world back on track by turbocharging action on the Sustainable Development Goals. Adebola Brookslyn, NTA News.
This is news on NTA International. We take a break now. Head of the African Development Bank, AFDB Group, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, has expressed delight over the completion and handover of the landmark Trans-Gambia Corridor project, referred to as the Senegambia Bridge, financed with a $102 million grant by the bank. The AFDB president said the economic integration and trade between Senegal, the Gambia, as well as other countries in the region have increased significantly since the construction of the bridge. Justin Bemuni reports.
Mr. President, you have intellectual property right for Jalapa.
President of the AFDB, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, on a two-day official visit to the Gambia to commission some projects, also inaugurated a 24-kilometer access road to Senegambia Bridge to Gambia. He commended the Gambian government's proactiveness in delivering the access road to the Senegambia Bridge, which is another landmark project financed by the African Development Bank Group with co-financing from the European Union through the African Infrastructure Platform. He noted that the completion of the access road to the Senegambia Bridge will further support the development of trade and transport facilitation.
I applauded his effort of the president on infrastructure. It seems to, as he told me, without infrastructure, there's no development, and I agree with him. He said the first priority for him is infrastructure, second priority, infrastructure, third priority, infrastructure. I said, Mr. President, infrastructure is like the backbone in the body. If you have a backbone, you have an economy. If you don't have a backbone, you cannot thrive in an economy.
Meanwhile, the African Development Bank plans to support Gambia to unlock its renewable energy potential. The AFDB boss pointed out that Gambia has potential to generate 430 megawatts of solar, 200 megawatts of wind power, and another 25 megawatts from biomass, which when combined is enough energy to power every home and business in the country, with a lot more for export. Adesina said the African Development Bank's financing of $36.7 million for the Gambia River Basin Development Organization and the electricity expansion projects have benefited more than 1.3 million people, contributed to the country's efforts to increase electricity access from 35% in 2015 to 65% in 2023, and provided an extra 14 megawatts to the country's installed capacity of 102 megawatts. He also confirmed that the bank's ongoing investments in water and sanitation of $18.3 million, including an $8.8 million in co-financing from the Global Environment Facility, GEF, are helping to reduce waterborne diseases, particularly in rural communities, by providing climate-smart water and sanitation facilities. In the meantime, President Adama Barrow of the Gambia awarded head of the AFDB group, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, the Grand Commander of the Order of the Republic of the Gambia, an acknowledgement of Adesina's leadership in driving Africa's economic growth. Justin Bemunyi, NTA News.
The United Nations has expressed concerns about the violence in Liberia ahead of the 10 October elections and called on all parties to refrain from inciting hatred or bloodshed. This is coming as deadly clashes have occurred between supporters of the two main political parties in the country. Again, Justin Bemunyi reports.
Spokesperson for the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Saif Magango, in a statement said it is concerned about reports of election-related violence, the use of language that could amount to hate speech, and attacks on journalists in Liberia. Deadly clashes have occurred between supporters of the two main political parties, the Opposition Unity and the ruling Coalition for Democratic Change, CDC, during the campaign for the presidential and parliamentary elections in that country. Mr. Magango reported that at least 2 persons were killed and 20 injured in Lofa County on 29 September during clashes between former Vice President Joseph Boakai supporters and that of former football star George Weah, who has been the head of state since 2018. A previous report by the UN and the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, put the death toll at 3. The Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights also reported electoral violence in 3 other counties. Mr. Magango said their services have also documented 8 attacks on journalists by various political protagonists, 2 of which resulted in injuries. Liberia experienced civil wars between 1989 and 2003, which left more than 250,000 people dead. The main Liberian political parties pledged in April 2023 to refrain from violence and to use judicial institutions to resolve any electoral disputes that might arise before and after the elections. The spokesperson says the government must ensure that journalists can carry out their work freely and safely, stressing that all political actors must refrain from inciting violence and hatred. He also said that all incidents of election-related violence must be thoroughly and independently investigated, and those responsible must be held to account without delay. More than 2.4 million voters are registered for the presidential and legislative elections to choose 73 deputies and 15 senators out of the country's 30 at the end of their term of office. Justin Bemunyi, NTA News.
The federal government is adopting climate-smart agriculture with a view to eradicating hunger and malnutrition in the country. The Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, of the United Nations is in partnership with Harvest Plus is supporting the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security to achieve the objective.
Climate change has remained a major threat to agricultural activities across West Africa, including Nigeria. Farmers in Nigeria have been experiencing low yield per hectare, just as cases of malnutrition is on the increase.
This is what Harvest Plus is trying to do.
This workshop, with experts drawn from various sectors, is to review the existing government policy on smart agriculture for food security and nutrition. It is expected to help create a roadmap for Kano, Kaduna, Jigawa and Gombe states for integrating and scaling early maturing biofortified seeds.
Is about facilitating policy reforms as needed to really enable scaling up access to climate smart agriculture inputs, nutrition, biofortified inputs, so that farmers can have access to nutrition but are also more resilient to climate change.
We provide partnerships and other areas of support in policy, in promoting good practices globally, in promoting best agricultural technologies and innovations.
Minister of Agriculture and Food Security in a message said the government is ready to adapt the United Nations recommendations on food systems and smart agriculture. Musa Aliyu, NTA News.
It has been estimated that traditional cooking with firewood is claiming over 114,000 lives annually through smoke inhalation in Nigeria. With this disturbing number, both government and the private sector are committing efforts to cutting down emissions and deaths while achieving the use of gas and efficient clean energy cook stoves for 30 million households before 2030. Charles Alpha reports.
Reports have shown that 9 out of 10 people breathe air that has been polluted with smoky, polluting stoves and fuels inside their homes, with about 175,000 households, particularly in rural communities in Nigeria, lacking access to clean cooking stoves. Exhibited here are clean energy and electric stoves, locally made, depicting that Nigeria's transition to carbon-neutral cooking solution is on course.
They save 50% on fuel use.
It also reduces the carbon emissions by over 65%.
Next is Friday's weather forecast. That's it on the news on NTA International. On behalf of our sign language personality, Bamidele John, this is Nancy Godiangonihu thanking you for watching.